Hey, so the other day I got asked about this Torpedo Captor that I got that does allow you to record tube amps like the one I've got behind me, either completely silently or you can run through a cab like I've got behind me as well and take a dry output of the amp at the same time. So for the purposes of comparison, that's what I'm going to be doing with it today. So I've got a 2x12 EVH cab with an SM57 on the speaker, which is a G12 Celestine speaker, and then I'm going to compare it to similar sort of cabinet simulations that you can get in the provided wall of sound plugin that you get when you get the hardware unit. I'm just going to be using this 57. It's just sort of off the edge of the speaker cone. In terms of pedals, I'm not going to be using this overdrive. The EVH doesn't need one at all, but I will be using a slight EQ on this G7 and a bit of reverb and delay when it's called for. Right on time. Speaker cable. So now we've got the second speaker cable coming out the back of the speaker through and going into the cab. With the amp in the 15 watt mode with the master volume just over halfway. This is fairly loud in the room. So we're back up to just over halfway on the master volume now, so we'll try some more extreme stuff. Okay, so I'm at my desktop now, so these are the two tracks that I've just recorded with the playthrough. This top one labelled Torpedo, obviously the Torpedo, and the bottom one is the mic'd cab. There's no other post-processing on the cab track at the moment, and there's nothing on the capped track apart from the wall of sound plugin, and it's just panned right down the middle, so it's just a mono signal, same as the cab input. So I'm just going to loop. Okay, so to me those are sounding actually pretty close now. I actually prefer the Captor on this one. The real cab seems to have some pretty nasty high frequencies. So normally you just process those out with, like, you know, a typical EQ. Something else that's really useful is the ability to blend different impulses together, and you can also mic the back of cabinets, which is what I've actually done here. So it's a bit fairly off-center and pulled back even a bit more than the other is. So I'll turn off the main impulse and show you just what that sounds like by itself. you wouldn't use that as your main guitar sound, but blended in with the front of the cab, it can really thicken things up a lot. That sounds really good to me. It actually makes it sound a lot more like a cabinet in a room as opposed to just the one mic on the front. So I'll turn it off and back on again. Sort of fills out sub-frequencies, so we can run different cabinets as well. If we change both of these to this 2x12 cab, these are actually the same speakers now, so it should be a bit closer. So yeah, that's the sort of post-processing that you can do just within the Wall of Sound plugin to be even close to what you're trying to aim for. But obviously you've got the added flexibility of being able to move around these things in post. So we can now actually take a look at how this sounds in a mix as well. So this is a mix project for one of the bands that I'm in, Insurgency, that released this track as part of a demo tape on Dying Victims earlier in 2022. The original guitar tracks are all up here, but they're all muted for the time being. So I've got two different buses here, the Torpedo and the cab. So left one, right one is the Torpedo, left two, right two is the cabinet. So I'll just show you what the sound I've got dialed in for the Captor is at the moment. So I've got that G12 cabinet up again, the 2x12, and I've mic'd up the back of a more Marshall style cabinet, like a 4x12, and blended that in. Obviously this is all stereo now as well, and it sounds pretty good to me. And then if we just compare that with the it's really, really close. So that's obviously the two in isolation, but obviously we need to hear how it sounds in an actual mix as well. So this is the Captor. So both of those are definitely entirely usable in a mix situation, and this is without any post-processing on the cab. Obviously you do, like, you know, a bit of high pass, low pass, all that other sort of stuff that you typically do, but as a starting point this gets incredibly close, quite a lot easier I'd say than miking up a cabinet in a room. So yeah, as a mixing tool for me, when I'm doing reamping for people, I can, you know, dial my amps in. You know, I've got EVH amps, Marshall amps, Black Star combos, Laney amps, and you know, I can dial those in how I know that they sound typically quite good, and then, you know, throw different cabinets at it and see, you know, what sort of sounds we can get the rest of a mix sort of closer to where it needs to be. And then after that I can, you know, fine tune the cabinet settings and make it actually sit like really, really nicely. And this is without even using the compressors, and we don't need to use these power amp emulations because we've got real power amps working. But if you've got like amp sims and things like that, this can help with those like quite a lot really. And obviously when I'm doing reamping, if you just send me good quality DI tracks, if we don't like the amp settings that we've got, or we want to try multiple different amplifiers or just blend multiple amps, I can reamp the whole thing just from the DIs and start all over again from dialing the amp back in and then redo this whole process. So for me, it gives me a lot more flexibility in the sounds that I can deliver people, and you know, it's easier to do revisions without having to re-record the actual guitars with the microphone in front of the cabinet, you know, sitting there for 20 minutes every time for each guitar track. So it'll make things cheaper and easier for me to work for people. So if you've got any songs that you want either mixing or you just want guitar tones, then just send me a message and we can work something out. Cheers.